pain. The Batman.
Always waiting for some Batman to save you.
It's simple. We kill.
The Bat of Gotham.
I'm Batman.
Hey now, welcome to episode number 14 of the Batman on Film Social Hour. I am the host of this show here on Batman on Film, whether it's a podcast version. There'll be both this time. This is going to be a video and a podcast version of the Social Hour. And so, as I say, belly up at the bar, whatever you're drinking, milks, a Coke, whatever kind of Coke you're drinking, right, Pete?
Yeah, I think Garrett's got some sarsaparilla over there.
Yeah, it's an old timey sparkling water. This is black cherry, and it's delightful.
That's whatever you're having or partaking in beverage wise, and join us for the next 30 some odd minutes to talk about some Batman on film, maybe type of stuff, or just what's going on in the world of DC on film. And you never know when food, weather. What else do I like to bring up, boys? Football.
Yep.
Garrett, we're like 4 months, almost a little over 4 months from the NFL kickoff.
Counting the days.
I'm not even thinking about that, man. Baseball season just started.
Well, and for Pete, I've got next month, I am going to the new ballpark in Arlington. What is it? Globe Life Field, I think the new place is. And I'm going to go see the Rangers play your New York Yankees.
Oh man,
And
the Yankees aren't good right now.
They're
struggling.
a matinee game on a Thursday, I believe it is. So, looking forward.
When I was able to go to Globe Life Park.
Yeah.
Not too.
I love that ballpark. Love it.
Beautiful ballpark, and I got this gigantic smoked turkey leg, and it was delicious.
That's right
Everything's
up your
bigger in
alley,
Texas,
man.
so it's the truth. Even the food at the ballpark.
Speaking of smoked meats, I am going to attempt at some point to do a brisket. And I've been doing research on YouTube and online because I'm doing it on a my gas grill. So I got to figure it out. I bought a smoke box. I bought some these wood chunks from Jack Daniels. They are from Jack Daniels whiskey barrels. Yeah.
No, they're good stuff.
That.
I buy I buy that.
Okay.
I buy those.
So I'm going to hit you up at some point off show and get some of your ideas.
As soon as the show's done, I'm going outside and I'm grilling some
right.
baked burgers on the kettle.
So I did get. I'm going to practice. I got a what they call a turkey roast. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's a deboned turkey without the legs and basically the thighs and the breast, and it looks like a big slab of meat. And I'm going to smoke it. I'm going to do it kind of like you do a brisket with the rub and everything, and just to see how it comes out. Because I know that brisket.
This is your first brisket?
I've never done it. I have never cooked.
I'm going to tell you right now. It's going to be bad. Everyone's first brisket is not good. So
I know it will be.
Be prepared. You might be eating some leather.
I'm gonna practice on this. It's kind of just practice on this turkey loin, this turkey whatever roast, just to get the logistic. I mean, all the mechanics going, and then I'm gonna give a brisket a go, and it probably will suck. And then I'm gonna play with it. What the hell? I'm retired. I can do what the hell I want to do.
It took me maybe 4 briskets to get it right.
Okay. Well,
I was doing charcoal and wood, so I was messing around with temperatures and stuff like that. So it's a little bit trickier for me. So
I got you.
It took me about 4 briskets. But my ribs came out on point first try.
All right.
Ooh,
I was very proud.
Garrett, you cooked up anything lately before we move on to?
I've been traveling so much lately.
Yeah.
We recorded a podcast with the boys, and it was the first one in 3 weeks, Peter, I think at least. I think the last time we recorded a podcast, we were reviewing. You're on so many shows, right? I think the last one we were talking about right after Zack Snyder's Justice League dropped. So I haven't been home a lot. I did some cooking. We're out in Arizona for like 8 days with the family. I did some cooking out there, but no grill, no smoker. But the weather is starting to come back around in Minnesota. It got real hot for a few days, of course, while we were out of town.
Didn't it snow yesterday or the day before?
And then we got snow earlier this week. Yeah, it stuck around for a day. This weekend.
My Minnesota folks were like, my Minnesota peeps were like, it freaking snowed, Yeah.
Back in action. But this weekend looks like it's going to be nicer, so I'll probably get out and fire up the grill and cook up something delightful, hopefully.
Okay, all right.
As long as I stay healthy. This morning I went and got my second shot of the Pfizer, so so far so good. My family and friends that have had the Pfizer vaccine haven't reported a lot of side effects. Yeah. I'm still doing well so far today. I'm like 5 hours into it. Yeah. So as long as I'm
everybody here is double dosed up.
We should be good.
I got Pfizer. Yeah, I'm good.
I was Moderna.
Bring on a watch party.
I had no problem with the first one, and announcer Rachel got hers on the Sunday prior to I got mine, and it knocked her down for 3 days to where she couldn't even go to work. It was that Easter weekend, so she's off Monday, and then she had to go to work Tuesday, and she couldn't make it. So I ended up going in subbing for her, and then I got mine last Friday, and I was sweating it out all the rest of the week, going, oh my God, I'm gonna feel like crap all weekend. I got it. Besides a little being my arm being sore here, I had nothing. So that's been a week.
Good deal.
Yeah.
The path to normalcy, man.
Yes. All right. So let's get to some topics here. All right. So I asked Pete before we got on air, so I'll just throw it out there. Garrett, did you get a chance to read Batman Scooby-Doo #1?
I haven't, but I've seen you respond to it. I've seen, our fellow BOF senior contributor Ryan Lauer say very nice things about it. So it's on my to-do list. I've got a couple other books I need to read this weekend, but I've heard great things. So I'm excited for it.
Then I'm gonna leave it at that. I read it, reviewed it. I got DC Comics loaded it up later than they were wanting to, so my review was kind of late but anyway, check it out on Batman on Film. I loved it. I grew up a kid in the early 70s watching Saturday morning cartoons, and I love Scooby-Doo and the old Scooby-Doo mystery cartoons when Batman would guest star in a couple episodes, which ended up becoming that Batman meets Scooby-Doo animated film. So I love all that stuff. And I loved Batman the Brave and the Bold, Scooby-Doo movie they did a few years ago. So I love all that stuff, and I give it a shot. I mean, I thought that the Batman or DC, it wasn't just Batman, the DC Looney Tunes crossovers. Remember they did those a couple of years ago? I love that Elmer Fudd one. Yes.
Yeah, that was good. Everyone loved it.
So it's kind of like that. Big love letter to Batman history. So give it a shot. And
they should do a crossover with Scooby-Doo and George Clooney's Batman. That's what they should do. That's something up my alley. Bring back Matthew Lillard, Freddie Prinze Jr. Who else? Sam Michelle Gellar.
You want a live action version? Live action?
Yeah. Who wouldn't want that? Come on, that'd be fun.
I'm not gonna lie. I'd watch it.
And then the connection's been there forever. So if you remember back, or at least I remember back, when the live action movie was going to be released, in the trailers, they had the spotlight kind of shining down on what looked like the bat ears and the cowl, and then the music changed and Scooby turned, and it was Scooby with his ears up, and that was like, we didn't have Batman movies at that point. That was I'm like, oh, they knew what they were doing.
That is how I found Batman on Film. I forget the movie I went to go see, but I saw that damn trailer, and then I was like, oh man, Batman movies, and I Googled Batman movies, and BOF popped up, it was actually probably Yahoo at the time. I don't think Google took over the world yet, but that's how I found Batman on Film.
Awesome. Crazy.
That pulled a rug out of a lot of people back in the day.
It was great.
Is that thing on YouTube anywhere?
It's on YouTube. It is on YouTube. Just search the Scooby-Doo trailer.
Yeah, man, Scooby-Doo trailer and OnStar commercials were all we had for a little while there.
Yeah, true.
And then
those
like
OnStar
early
commercials were produced by Peter McGregor Scott, so
Yeah.
he didn't get fired after Batman and Robin. They just reassigned him.
Those are
to
pretty
a lower
good.
budget.
Though. I have them on. They're on somewhere on Batman on Film, I think, in somewhere. All those OnStar commercials. All right, so at some point we'll talk Batman, Scooby Doo, and everybody's read it. Maybe I think what is it, September or October? The whole the collection comes out, and or at some point, it's not too far away. Volume 1 comes out, the whole thing, and we'll talk about it at some point. All right, let's see. I know y'all talked about it on the latest Batman on Film podcast, but looks like Warner Brothers, not looks like, they're going to give a 40-day theater exclusive starting in 2022 to their theatrical films, and the Batman, maybe their first big movie, right? That'll be
That's the way it looks like, right?
theater exclusive.
the way the slate lines up, it should be their first big movie. I said it when we recorded. I think I mentioned it with you before, Bill. I'm planning on it being my return to the cinema, to the theater too. So I've been digging the HBO Max, down on the home theater. It's worked out fine for me. It's fit in pretty well with my schedule, having young kids and obviously with pandemic concerns, but I am hyped, got that second vaccination shot. I don't know if we need to get another one by the time the Batman comes out, but I'll make sure I do, because I'm going to see the theater, that thing in the theater.
I think we have to have a booster for that at some point, but yeah.
I know Pfizer does.
I'm assuming that, because Warner Brothers, they still are putting out films in the cinema, but they're just same day as HBO Max.
Yeah,
right
day
now.
and date.
Yeah, and so I don't know how any of the other big tentpole movies for other studios fall later this year, but is the Batman the first one that's, I don't know, Spider-Man comes out right before, right?
Yeah. I don't know, but I know Disney charges the $30 to watch it on Disney Plus.
Okay.
They do it differently.
Right. It's the premiere access on Disney Plus to be able to get the movie.
Okay. So there may be other films. I don't know. By March of next year, I don't know how leery people will be of, throughout the rest of this year going to the cinemas, the theater. But by March of next year, got to, right? It's got to be.
I think
more folks coming out.
I expect people to kind of be a little hesitant up until 2022. I think the rest of this year is going to carry on the way it has been.
Especially when we kind of wrap around into the fall and we're back into the just normal, everyday, average, virusy cold and flu season. You never know how that's going to swing things.
Yeah.
But Bill, I think I'm aligned with you. I think that'll mark probably the big grand return for the vast majority of people to get into a theater and be less apprehensive. Like 2022 feels like the year for that. And why not start it off with a dramatic return of a solo Batman film? It seems like a great way to ring it in.
Like I say, Batman's going to fix
perfect timing, right?
Fix all that shit. Fix that shit.
Right.
Yeah. Champion. It's a hero. Damn
hero we need.
He is.
Yeah,
Hero we need right now. Not later.
No.
All right. So let me bring this up to you all. What did y'all think of the trilogy trailer for the Zack Snyderverse that HBO Max dropped a few days ago?
I actually didn't dig the trailer. It kind of felt like, it didn't feel like a Snyder trailer. It felt like HBO did it without his involvement, to be honest with you. And I felt like all the voiceovers just didn't really hit with me. I think the thing that caught everyone's attention is the completion of the trilogy, whatever that statement was. So
I think that the message, I think there's a message being sent. No, or am I just reading too much into it?
I feel like the message has been sent for a while. I do think that I do think Warner Brothers is kind of doing it respectfully, to be honest with you.
Yeah, sure.
I don't think they're very aggressive. It's just like, this is what it is. This is what we're doing. Even the Times article, I think it was, with Sarnoff. Like, I don't think anything's been really disrespectful in any way. But it's just kind of like, hey guys, look, we hear you. We know that you want more, but we're taking our IP in a different direction.
Yeah, that was the feel I got from it too. And, to the trailer itself, I thought it was, interesting to see everything cut together. It felt very in theme with the director. You said it didn't feel like a Snyder trailer, but to me, a 4.5-minute trailer for a series of movies that concludes with a 4-hour plus, last chapter felt like, into long stuff, into like lengthy amounts of time. But as far as like a true trailer, it definitely felt like a post trailer for an audience that's already seen these movies, as opposed to trying to sell these movies to an audience for the first time.
Absolutely.
Which of course, we are, going on 8 years of living in this universe since Man of Steel, right? So, you assume that most of the interested parties have seen at least a couple entries into this trilogy, if not all. But it was different from a typical movie trailer where, you kind of got it all, right? It was all in there.
Yeah. It was more of a wrap up.
Right.
Thank you. I don't know. Celebration type thing. I enjoyed watching it just for the DC guy in me, but and I think Pete made a great point that they've done this very respectably, and they didn't have to. They didn't have to at all.
They could do nothing.
After the Ann Sarnoff interview, they said this all along, that this is going to be it, and they're moving in the direction, and so they're kind of this. I think this was for them just kind of say it was kind of cool to say you've got this trilogy, and it's with a 4-hour conclusion and 2. I guess if you're going to use the what was it called, the extended cut or whatever for BVS, that's 3 hours,
Ultimate Edition,
and then Man of Steel's probably close to 2.5. That's a good chunk of time.
Yeah, you got about 10 hours worth of content in here, which is longer than almost you're at the Lord of the Rings trilogy time length and beyond at that point, extended editions even. It felt like providing a sense of closure, maybe to a elements of a fan base that are rejecting that closure or don't want the closure, but it did seem to provide that, and in a reverent way, not a we're leaving this garbage on the side of the road and walking, but to say we did this thing, here's this thing, here's it in this sort of sub trilogy of the larger DC universe, and put some pizzazz to it. It felt like a well-produced trailer. They obviously spent some money with whatever editing house took it on. Not needed, right? Yeah. But it is sort of saying, onward. Here's this cool thing. Glad you like it. Let's celebrate it. And now let's segue to what's next.
I would just hope people appreciate all of it. And they're saying here's this 10-hour plus block of DC stuff that resonates with you, that you love, that you can always enjoy, just like I can throw in Dark Knight Trilogy and watch it whenever I want to, and so moving forward, I thought it was cool that they did that. I really did. I wasn't here to bust any balls with those folks. I was just saying, hey, I thought it was kind of cool they did that, because you didn't have to do that.
That's what I've been saying since day one. I know some people are not happy with the New York Times articles and stuff like that. But to be brutally honest, they don't have to tell you anything. It's their business. It's their product.
Sure.
You're just the consumer. You could speak with your wallets. You can buy it or you can not buy it. But they don't have to tell you what they're really doing. And the fact that they want to, and the fact that they have enough respect to actually say, hey, look, this is it. Here's the deal. And whatnot, just be happy,
And again, it was way more for those fans than it was, as Garrett said, it's not to try to get people to watch this, right? I think the people, especially in the general audience who were going to watch it, already watched it, which wasn't a huge amount of folks. All the fans who watched it have watched it multiple times, and they're going to keep on watching it, and it will be there. So,
yeah. I'm going to keep on watching BVS. I dig that movie.
Yeah.
I like that movie a lot.
We know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always there for you. It's
always
a warm,
comfortable. It's always there. So is Batman Returns. I love watching Batman Returns.
In a similar way, I don't hold them in the same esteem, but to people I see and interact with that are diehard Star Wars fans that bemoan what Disney did with the theatrical films. It's like the original trilogy is still there, man. Like, you don't have to love all this stuff in the same way.
Oh yeah,
it doesn't diminish from those films. Yeah, man, it's just nuts to me. You can still go back and love and enjoy and appreciate those movies. For a while with Lucas, it wasn't quite that same way because he was tweaking those things every time you turned around. But what they do from here doesn't diminish what got them to this point, right? And if you love that thing, no one's taking it away from you. You can still go back and visit it.
That's how I feel about Spider-Man. I always will have Raimi.
Yeah. Well, and I think ironically enough, some of the BOF detractors out there, believe it or not, they're out there.
No way.
Kind of lobbed the same thing in our direction around the Nolan trilogy when Snyder was doing his thing. It's like, hey, you can always go back and watch the Nolan trilogy. Well, okay, sure. It was true then for us. It's true now for those diehards. It's still there. Hopefully, we can all enjoy what's next. But
hell, I go back and watch Schumacher. I don't care. Give me a guy with a cape and pointy ears, and I'm watching it.
Yeah, easy sell.
My son Micah, who did, I thought he did a great job on his video review of ZSJL here recently. He's going to do more of those Raimi reviews, and he goes, "I'm going to do Batman and Robin." He goes, "I don't care what anybody says. I love that movie."
Can I be on the show with him?
Sure, I'll tell him. He goes, "I love that movie," and that's something he as a kid watched.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times, because it came out.
It
came out the year he was born, and he loves.
He's that young? Okay, wow. All right, I thought he was about my age.
Birthday today. Shout out Micah Raimi, 24 years old
happy
today.
Birthday.
Yeah. He came out. He was born that year, 97. So it's I watched that and Forever with them. Him and his sister, older sister. That's probably what made him a Batman fan, not Batman film. He didn't become a Batman fan. So, yeah. So look forward to that. All right, we'll move on from that. We got the trilogy trailer out of the way. Batman: The Long Halloween Part 1 has a release date. It is June 22nd, 2021, and it is going to be released digitally and on Blu-ray the same day. Any thoughts about that, Garrett? I don't think you got it. I haven't heard you talk about Batman: The Long Halloween.
No, I haven't talked about that one yet. I love The Long Halloween. It's I think probably my second favorite Batman story of all time. It's way up there. That I have it as year one. But the Man Who Falls, the single issue from Denny O'Neil.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so year one, then The Long Halloween, and then a couple others. My top 5 are pretty fluid. But I love The Long Halloween. This looks really interesting to me. Jason Ackles, I think I heard him, Ackles, I think it's Ackles.
How's that feel, Garrett?
Yeah, I know. I feel like Peter messing up my pronunciations. I saw some fans not really dig what he was doing with the Batman voice. I thought it was good. I thought it worked. I think the art looks good. The animation style, it's not necessarily Tim Sale art, but it looks really good. And the fact that we're getting a 2-parter, they're dedicating, I don't like, Bill, I'm like you, the direct adaptations aren't always my favorite. The inspiration, the jumping off point typically is what I like a little bit better. But oftentimes that's just because in these animated movies, they're trying to hit like an 86-minute runtime. And I don't want to see them try to do a direct adaptation of a long run story in 86 minutes. So just like the Dark Knight Returns, Death of Superman, Superman Returns, Reign of the Superman, whatever they call that. I'm glad this is going to get stretched across, not stretched, but accurately fit into 2 different movies. And the rest of the voice cast sounds really impressive as well. Rest in peace to Naya Rivera. I'm interested to hear that. I
think she stole the trailer from me.
Yeah,
it's
terrible.
It's really something.
Yeah, me and Pete talked about it. I had no idea she was voicing Catwoman until I got the press release, and I knew about her tragic drowning with her kid. Oh my gosh, it's just terrible. But gets the voice.
Yeah, died a hero, right? Yeah. And gets to play an anti-hero, posthumously. But my wife and I watched Glee when that was on, and that was like her kind of big star-making thing where she got the most famous, and that was just a heartbreaking story. I was shocked, Bill, like you. I didn't know she had been cast certainly didn't know she had already recorded her lines. So when I saw the press release, I'm like, this can't be right. And I looked into it, I'm like, oh my gosh. They really kind of kept that under wraps. I didn't hear anything about that. And probably respectfully, it would have seemed very uncouth to promote her appearance in the movie so close to her passing. But I think her fans will really get to enjoy this whole movie.
And I'm also glad they, in the press release that was sent out, and you can find it on Batman on Film, that they said it's inspired by the classic Long Halloween comic book story. So it's not. I'm like you brought it up. I do like even though I really like both Year One and The Dark Knight Returns. Even though Jay Oliva took away my Batman card, I still love his movie.
Right.
So
yeah, the guy makes a good cartoon.
Yeah. So, but I do like when they take the premise and they use some of the story and then kind of do a little bit of their own thing. I liked, Hush and Gotham by Gaslight, which I love Gotham by Gaslight, and I was fine with the movie a lot. I really like what they did with the movie.
I like both takes, to be honest. I think there's a time and a place, as long as they're well executed. Like I love what Year One did, and we all know what's going on in that movie. There's no twists and turns. Same with Dark Knight Returns. Flashpoint, things changed a little bit because that was a big DC event. They condensed it down, and I really dig that film as well. So and you mentioned Gotham by Gaslight and Hush. Like I'm one of the few people who really enjoyed that movie. I was like, oh wow, like I didn't. In essence, it's still the same. Like it's still the Riddler going around pulling strings. Tommy Elliott's not my favorite take, but like I appreciate the movie, and I don't hate the Killing Joke animated movie at all. I know a lot of people take offense to what the first part of that movie was, but in essence, it's still Killing Joke to me.
Killing Joke, the intro is obviously a little bit interesting.
Yeah.
But it just, for such a prestige story, the animation in Killing Joke was kind of what held it back for me. I didn't think the animation lived up to sort of the prestige of the title. But otherwise, I don't mind when there's a little bit of a switch up. You're right. Hush was kind of...
Keep it fresh.
I mean,
Riddler
Riddler
was the heart of it. I was going to say Riddler is even in print. Riddler is sort of the machinations behind everything and sort of manipulating Tommy Elliott. This sort of really put it in your face and brought it. It's like more bombastic, more cartoonish, if you will, and that worked just fine. I was thoroughly entertained by that.
And then when Elliot ultimately meets his fate, you're kind of like, oh well, what the hell's going on here?
Right.
And then so like I don't mind the fact that I'm in for a surprise every now and then. So
yeah, for sure,
I'm down.
And I'm
again, just make it good.
I'm someone who I'm not a fan of Hush, the comic book story. I think it's like big time overrated. I don't think it's a Batman classic, but I did like.
We got to do a show on Hush.
We will.
I want to get Haas involved in that.
Yeah, I'll go to my grave on that one. But like with what I was going to say, and Garrett was talking, the Killing Joke movie, other than with the part they added in at the beginning, it's exactly like the comic book,
Right.
So if you could, they got a lot of crap for what they added in, but that didn't bother me that much.
No, it's like I remember they said like because the book is so short, they couldn't justify making it a movie. I think they could have got away with whatever it is, a prologue or whatever. I think they could have just made the Killing Joke, and just it is what it is. Like I don't think you really need to stretch it to an extent, right? Like Garrett, how do you feel about that?
No, I think so too. I thought it was, originally, Killing Joke, not a big long run storyline. So when they said it was going to be animated, I actually expected it to have a couple short features leading into it to sort of justify a single disc sale or to get people to pick it up digitally, where they could do some of those showcase things that are going to be coming back. And they're, WB announced a while ago they're going to do more of those with their DC animated films. I thought the same thing, make a 45, 50 minute, well-produced thing. Don't stretch the story. Not that what they did was not well done, but I thought maybe you just add a couple shorts in front of it. Like there was, I think it was a Superman Black Adam one of the early on movies where they did sort of the same thing. There's a couple shorter features, and then the main item was not even a full hour. That would have worked just fine. But what they did was good. I've got very few complaints. And while some of the audience, and me too, didn't respond the best to the Bruce Barbara stuff, there was history for it in the Timverse too, and whatever.
That's a thing he does, man.
That's a thing he likes.
You shouldn't be surprised that Bruce and Barbara get up. And look, I'm a Grayson guy, so I don't think Bruce, should take Grayson's girl there. But I don't know. As some people say, look at it like an Elseworlds tale.
Sure, there you go.
Yeah, that's what you do. This is a topic for it'd be a good podcast. Our social hours talk about the animated films, straight up adaptations opposed to taking the inspired by approach.
But we did that recently on the last podcast. We talked about Suicide Squad: Hell to Pay, which I think is a phenomenal movie in itself, and especially as a continuation of Flashpoint, like as a direct sequel, and you just combine what happened with Flashpoint with just the craziness that is Amanda Waller and her Task Force X, and it's a fun ride, and those are more of original ideas, and that's a sequel to a movie that is an inspired by film, right? So that's having it both ways, in my opinion.
Sure,
because
absolutely, yeah.
The sequel to Flashpoint is New 52. That's not what Suicide Squad: Hell to Pay is. I think it's fantastic, and the people in charge of WB Animation, I think, have been on point recently. You look at things like Soul of the Dragon, which is fresh and new, and it's a new idea. And
as much as people complain about live action DC on film, they really hit the ball out of the park with their animated films, in my opinion. I mean, they're really good, and it's good for the fans.
Agreed.
Yeah.
The only one I think I don't like is Batman and Harley Quinn. I think that's the only one I don't like.
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah, I agree.
Probably so. All right, here's the main topic. I was inspired by some stuff I was reading on the Batman on Film Facebook group.
Some of my favorite people are in that group.
Yes, this involves the MCU. It involves what DC has done with the Dark Knight trilogy, then after the Dark Knight trilogy with that run, the Snyder trilogy, if you want to call it that now. Apparently they are. It's kind of a two-part question. I'll let y'all. I'm gonna throw out one at a time and see what y'all have to say. Does it matter to you if a comic book movie connects with a shared universe? Does it matter to you when you go to see a comic book movie that it is in a shared universe and connects with other characters in other films?
No, not at all.
Okay, why?
I want to watch a good movie.
Okay.
And this, to be honest, I feel the same way about comic books. Garrett's big on Justice League books. He likes team up books. I don't. I would much rather watch a solo movie and read a solo comic book because I'm interested in that character and that character's world pretty much.
All right.
But I do read what would be a Justice League. You know what I'm saying? Like I read them all, I watch them all, but I prefer them on their own. That's just me. Okay,
I'm with you. Garrett, your thought. Does it matter to you if they connect and they're in a shared universe and all of that entails? So we're talking the MCU approach.
Sure. I wouldn't say that it matters to me in so much that I can't enjoy it if it doesn't. Obviously, that's the vast majority of the time we've had comic book and superhero motion pictures and television shows. It's not until really the MCU got into the swing of things where it became a sprawling franchise as opposed to installments or individual franchises. The first barrier for me, like the first gate it has to pass is the thing good? Does it do what it wants to do, what it sets out to do in telling a quality story and entertain the audience? If it can't pass that gate, it doesn't matter to me if it connects to anything else. Now, if the directors and producers and the vision for these titles or these characters is that they interconnect and they can pass that first gate and properly execute through the second gate of having them be connected, that to me is, all the better. And I think it kind of goes, back to me as a kid, forever it was like Batman and Superman were my, 1A and 1B favorite characters that I was a fan of. And I loved the fact that they were in the same world. So to see that happen really well would be awesome for me. But short of that, I would rather have the individual movie be outstanding without trying to reach to the second thing at the expense of the first.
Okay, I agree with both of you. I don't need them to connect. It probably goes back to my comic book, the way I came up reading comics, which also speaks to the difference between Marvel and DC, is that I could read Batman the Detective, and I never really left the world of Batman. But there was Justice League, and then I did read Justice League as a kid. It wasn't my main thing, but what was going on in Batman or Detective didn't have anything to do with what was going on with the Batman in Justice League or Brave and the Bold or whatever, where he teamed up. So that's where I get that from. So there's my second part.
Well, Bill, before you go ahead.
Go ahead.
I agree with, I think that thought is right on. It really speaks to the way that DC was set up to operate under the different editors, for years and years and years.
Yes.
You would have, somebody in charge of, the Superman kingdom or fiefdom.
Exactly.
And Denny O'Neil would be over the Batman books.
Yes.
And even for a lot of people don't realize this, World's Finest is thought of as the title that always had Superman and Batman interact. But for like the first 20 years of stories in World's Finest, there was a Batman story and a Superman story.
Correct.
Only started working together like decades into that title.
Yes.
So if you've been a longtime fan and reading comic books, longer than Peter or I have back decades before, that's how you were programmed to think about these characters.
Yes.
And then when they interacted, it was a separate thing, right? It wasn't even maybe the same content. It might not even taken place on the same Earth.
Well, it's almost like each editor was a mayor of his respective city. Like DC characters have their own cities. Whereas in the Marvel universe, it's pretty much New York. They're all in New York. Yeah. Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, Daredevil.
Yes.
Iron Man. Like New York is the center of that universe, and
absolutely,
that's kind of how it's always been. Even in the movies, to an extent, New York is kind of the center of it all.
Yeah, they moved Iron Man to California just to sort of give a difference between a lot of stuff taking place in New York. But you think about the way Marvel was set up, Stan the Man Lee was the editor over all of those titles. Yeah. So it wasn't set up in these separate fiefdoms. It was just Stan's stuff and Stan's creations that interacted, not going back to the 30s and having these separate, creators for all these different characters. You think about who makes up the Justice League. Let me just double check myself. All those characters had different creators. You flip over to the MCU, almost all of those characters had the same creators, or they were reinvented from Timely was DC. From I'm blanking on it now, but whatever Marvel was before.
The ones
Marvel.
with the Submariner and
Human Torch when he was an android.
Robot,
Captain America. Yeah,
they brought those back under the same editor team, all under Stan Lee. Yeah. So it makes sense that those are firmly connected in one universe.
And then DC went out and bought characters like Shazam and stuff.
Shazam.
They went out and brought or Captain Marvel. I'm sorry, Bill.
Marvel.
Captain Marvel.
It is Captain Marvel.
Damn it.
Eric Holzman's favorite movie, Captain Marvel.
That's different. That's different.
Now we're all confused. Oh man, the fanboys are going crazy. He's getting them all confused. I thought he reads comics.
Okay, I'm glad I brought this up because y'all are right. There is historically and even to this day, there's a difference between Marvel and DC in the comic book world. There really is.
Even the way they were made, the Marvel method.
Yeah. So the second part of my question is, does it matter to the general audience if these films connect, a la the MCU, as opposed to what it appears that
Garrett's answer is going to be longer than mine, so I'll go first.
That no, it appears that Warner Brothers with their DC properties are just we're going to make good movies by strong filmmakers. Some of them will quote unquote connect. Some of them will be their own thing, like the Batman and Joker and probably this Superman reboot. So, Garrett, you're chomping at the bit there. Sir, go ahead.
I think it matters today, but only because they've been trained for the last decade plus that it should be that way. Right? No, seriously. Informed, influenced, whatever. But the general audience now, with the advent of the MCU and the behemoth that it's become, I mean, bigger than Star Wars, right? Like, it's a behemoth. The general audience now expects things to interconnect and be connected because of what Marvel's done. But prior to that, it didn't matter. Some people would think of these things as being connected, even though they weren't. A lot of the general audience, is still waiting for some of the general audience is waiting for Batman to show up in the Avengers because they don't know. But there is this sort of the expectation that things interconnect because that's what Marvel's done. It doesn't mean that it has to be that way. It doesn't mean that they can't enjoy it if it doesn't. But what I think the challenge is for a studio like Warner Brothers to show, if they want to do this and make this identity, and it seems that they do, not everything needs to connect, and we're going to help you understand why that's okay, so that there's not this like fallout reaction when it doesn't take place, if that makes sense. So I think it doesn't truly matter, but expectations have shifted over the last 13 years or so.
Sure.
I think the DC movies are for the most part loosely connected. There's connective tissue if you want it to be there in movies such as Shazam, in Aquaman, Steppenwolf is referenced. Like Wonder Woman, Diana herself, she's the reference to the more connected Snyder movies. But like I don't necessarily, I stand by this, and I've gone to arguments, especially with the vigilantes about this. I just think people will go out and support a good film, whether it's connected or not. And like the CW is as connected as you can get, and no one's knocking down the door for more CW stuff, to be brutally honest. They're producing content, and I think actually the season's been very good for CW shows, but like no one's knocking down how amazing the interconnected CW is, in my opinion.
Well, and I think there's a distinction to be made here, right? So MCU style is you kind of have to see them all. And each movie is in some ways a direct sequel or prequel or sidequel to the next project. And to really get what they're doing with the universe, you have to think of them as installments in the universe franchise as opposed to individual franchise. What the feel I'm getting from DC movies, and Bill, I don't think this is too different than anything you've heard or have reported, is they can, with the exception of the Batman and probably the new Superman movie, exist sort of in the same vague general universe without being interconnected. So you can enjoy Wonder Woman movies without seeing Aquaman. You can go see whatever Blue Beetle's going to be without having to see Man of Steel first, right? That's a different thing. That's
I assume
that's
they're
a different from a vertical versus a horizontal integration.
And they're not made to set up. They're not made to set up something else with. They're not commercials for other films. They're not.
Right.
We're having this, and then we're going to have a cameo, and then we're going to have a post-credit or whatever, and then it's going to move on to this. And we're building up to this some huge event with all of these characters. That's not what they're doing. Yes. Well, go ahead.
Here's the thing. I've gotten a little bit of heat about this because I'm really pumped for Black Adam more so than the Flash, because I feel like the Flash movie might still do that interconnective commercial for other movies things, and I feel like that movie might be biting off a little bit more they can chew, even though I have a lot of faith in Muschietti, because it's like I feel like it's trying to connect the old while starting anew. So like I'm worried about that film just slightly, because it's just like that's a lot, but like I know that's like the Flash's territory, but I feel like they're trying to play both sides with that particular movie.
And I think that's fine though, right? Like playing both sides to me is maybe a good thing in this situation, because I think if you can have a film that artistically wants to do these big, crazy, wild things, and won't this be huge and cool and out there to tell the story that it wants to tell, while also at the same time not necessarily setting up the next project, but establishing the ground rules of these things are all out there. They're all their own thing. They're all cool, but they have some ties to one another without being bound to one another. Like, I think it can be an artistic and tactical film for DC films. Yeah, to say, let's do something big and crazy that shows some connective tissue, but on the outset of it, or on the back end of it, sets things up in a way that they can be enjoyed broadly without thinking, okay, this is going to lead directly into this, it's going to lead directly into this. It's just all out there by sort of reestablishing the relationship in that universe to be a little bit softer than firmly connected to being direct sequels.
Sure, absolutely, I agree with both of y'all. Okay, here's the other question, because it leads into that. I was going to say something. So, will DC on film and the Warner Brothers approach be with it not being MCU style connected? And I think that's the thing that a lot of fans can't. I don't want to get past, or when they talk about, does Warner Brothers have a plan? Yes, they have a plan, but it's not the plan that you think it is. It's not the plan of the MCU. It's not where they're making these films where they're setting all this stuff up. They're going to have a huge team up movie and then going to lead this and that. I thought fans
didn't want DC to replicate the MCU.
But that,
yeah, you think that narrative changes every time you log in.
But just look what they say. Do they have a plan? Yes, they have a plan. But it's not what you envision the plan is, and that brings all about the point about being connected and all this stuff, and that's why I brought it up. I'm
sure they have a plan. Do I need to know exactly what the plan is? Not really. I'm sure as these films are released, I will figure it out piece by piece. I don't need to know how the sausage is made.
I just can go to a movie, and I believe this for the general audience. If these DC films are good, it doesn't matter if they connect or not.
I agree with you.
That's the bottom line. Or you wouldn't have had an R-rated Joker film make over $1 billion and win Academy Awards.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think, Bill, you've got a really good point. I've got a buddy, I've talked about him before. I call him General Audience Kyle. And he sees...
General Audience Kyle.
Yeah,
all right.
General Audience Kyle. Shout out, Kyle.
GAK.
Yeah, he sees most of the big blockbuster superhero movies. He doesn't see them all. When we used to go to movies in the theater, we'd go see these together, to help our wives get the kids to bed, and we'd go run out to a 9:00 movie or something like that. And normally when we were hanging out, grabbing a beer, eating some wings beforehand, he'd be like, okay, just let me know. I didn't see this, or this. Am I going to be way out of my league watching this one? I'm like, from everything I've heard, no. We're talking Marvel movies now, right?
Yeah.
But even in the MCU, there's people that will go and shell out their bucks to go watch these things that maybe missed Captain Marvel or, Ant-Man and the Wasp or something. And they're still going to go. They might ask some questions, but it's not like they're not going to see it because they aren't caught up.
Mm-hmm. That's what
same... Right, yeah, the Wikipedia, yeah. There's YouTube videos to get you caught up in the same way. But so when it comes to DC films, not having that barrier to entry, once they find a way to, if they feel the need to market that, I think there's a potential that they could find a way to communicate that to the audience, that your barrier to entry here isn't as high as a Marvel movie. You don't have to worry about being caught up on all the other 20 movies to enjoy this one. That could actually broaden the door to get people in and cast a wider net for the audience, and that could be a great thing.
Sure. 100%, I agree. Pete, anything else on this?
No, we're very spoiled right now. We have movies.
Good point.
Every character possible. We're getting movies about characters we never even thought of. And at times it's almost hard to catch up, right? Like if you miss one, you don't want to have to, backtrack in order to see another. And I remember when I was talking to Mr. Uslan one time, he mentioned that, he doesn't want to have to see 3 movies. And I feel similar, that you really don't have any, I don't really like Thor,
Yeah.
Not one of my favorite characters. I don't want to have to go see a movie that I necessarily don't like to see one I might be interested in. If I want to see an Avengers film, do I have to see the previous Thor movie if he's not a character I enjoy?
Sure.
It's kind of, But I get it to an extent, but then it's like, well, if he pops up in another movie, I'm going to miss this reference. So it can be a little annoying. It's not something I like to do, but again, I am happy that people are enjoying all these characters. So there's a character for everyone. And even with TV, like there are more characters on TV now than there ever been before. So
Yeah.
I'm just happy that these characters are getting exposure and they're out there for the public to view.
There's another show for a podcast or a social hour, I think, embedded in this conversation around why different segments of DC fans might feel differently about this conversation. I think some of it is a little bit of MCU envy when they see these movies all making $1 billion and they want to see their heroes do the same thing and get as big or as
Jets and the MCU are the Patriots.
Right.
That's
yeah, sure.
kind of
There's
what
some
it
of
is
that.
right now.
There's some of that in there. But I think there's another thing from a historical context to look at the age group of fans that have, and it's not solely this, but I think there's an element of this, when they became fans and what they were used to being exposed to from a readership standpoint. And I read a lot of older stuff compared to my age. But looking at like post 1986, post crisis, when you saw some Marvel writing talent get infused into DC and take more of a Marvel approach to world building and characterization, inject that into DC kind of icons. Man of Steel is a great example with John Byrne in the way Clark was humanized and given, worries and focuses at work that didn't exist the same way, and parents that he interconnected with, and relationship dynamics, and sort of the relationship with Lois was presented a much more typical, Spider-Man and Mary Jane way even. And then, but it wasn't just Mark Byrne, or it wasn't just John Byrne. There were a number of other writers that came over that from the late 80s, mid to late 80s on, you have these segments of times where things were more connected in the books and a little bit more Marvel-y. And if that's what your home base was, you may be looking at the movies to emulate that without looking at the previous 50 years of DC history. I'm sounding a little bit more elitist that these people just haven't read enough DC comics. I think I don't mean to do that, but I think there's a segment of what you read, when you read it, and who those writers were that could influence your desire to see that on film.
And I don't think anyone's right or wrong. It's personal preference. I can't tell you what to enjoy. I can just speak to what I enjoy and what I think would be best. And that's just my opinion. And if you disagree with that, then that's great. It doesn't matter. To me, I would just have a conversation.
I don't think that the MCU became successful solely because of the interconnectivity of the films and so forth. I think that they
make entertaining movies.
I think Iron Man kicked ass.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that kind of made the brand to where you could see, it's a Marvel film. And people went to it, and the films were good in general. I think that's what it all boils down to, is that the films being good. People will go see it. Yeah, that movie is good. Tell people has legs. Boom, it's a hit. And
Iron Man, Incredible Hulk, Thor, and Avengers, right? That's phase 1, correct?
Yeah.
They're not, and Captain America, First Avenger, like those. None of those are bad movies.
Yeah, and I can't. And you
there was no stumble there.
And you can't say it all has to connect, because you wouldn't get a Joker, like I brought up.
And in those first movies, let's not forget. Like, I think the only thing that connects them are end credit scenes.
Yeah,
like they're not really that connected until probably the next phase of the MCU. That's where it takes to the next level.
And it really wasn't until you think about the big hits, kind of surprise hits, like almost like a sleeper hit at the time. And of course, they made a ton of money. The Guardians of the Galaxy movies really didn't get pulled into the fray until you got into Avengers Infinity War, right?
Those are standalone.
Those are standalone movies, but the brand at that point had become a juggernaut.
It's the brand, and that's why you can say, well, how did Marvel turn Ant-Man into a hit, or turn Guardians of the Galaxy into a hit? It's the There you go.
Brand recognition and Paul Rudd being just delightful.
Yeah, they have turned those movies into every Marvel movie is an event, right? Like every time there's a Marvel movie, there's huge amount of excitement and joy. Whereas, let's just be brutally honest here, every DC movie is kind of cautiously optimistic. Like I feel like we've had a really good run as of late, but that like phase 1 of DC on film or the DCEU was not as positively received as any of us would have wanted. And that's kind of, it always kind of comes back to like, well, you know, you stumbled right out of the gate.
Well, you know, and I don't think you have to go that far. I really enjoyed Birds of Prey, but they didn't market that as an event motion picture, right? Like that's just not how they presented it. I think it should have been. It should have been edited a bit differently.
Probably shouldn't have been R.
And had a PG-13 rating, but you could have made that a big event movie if you marketed it the right way with just very few tweaks.
Good stuff.
Whether or not that's what they should do, I can't tell you that. Whether or not they should do that and say, no, Kathy Yan, we're actually going to restrict this a little bit. We don't want you to do that because we want to be able to market differently.
But that's the movie she wanted to make. I can't tell her no.
That's where I'm at. Yeah. So I'd rather that with DC from Warner Brothers, which I like Birds of Prey a lot.
And I think the pandemic hurt that a lot too.
Yeah. I'd rather that than these, you know, like Kevin Feige being essentially like a showrunner and everything is this and that. I'd rather do the DC the way it looks like they're going to do it. Make good movies. Some will connect, some won't. If they're good, people will watch, and let a filmmaker's vision come through. And Birds of Prey is a great example. So is Joker, for Christ's sakes. You know what I'm saying?
I love it.
And it's $1 billion.
And R-rated.
Heavy, man. Wow.
There's not I don't know. There's a Marvel villain, and I'm not trying to shit on Marvel, but is there a Marvel villain that you could do a standalone solo movie?
No.
And have
I think Red Skull.
Did?
I think Red Skull and Doom. I think Dr. Doom and Red Skull. I think
you could do a solo movie, but that's not making $1 billion at the box office.
I mean, who knows?
Well, maybe now. Maybe now.
Any Marvel movie now makes $1 billion.
Maybe
10 years
now.
ago, maybe not. But I mean, Doctor Doom's as big as they come in terms of villains, and people. I mean, we got a guy on this panel right now who loves period pieces. You can't tell me you make a Red Skull period piece and people won't check it. And everyone loves to hate Nazis, right? Rightfully so.
Sure.
Like, they're great
Right.
movie villains.
Sure.
Indiana Jones made like 7 movies.
Sure.
Being the protagonist.
Indiana Jones has only made 3 movies, Peter. I won't hear another word about it.
Crystal Skull's not as bad as everyone makes it out to be. That's another
It
group
is.
of fans who got their childhood ruined.
Hound Dog
Nuke the fridge,
played
baby.
in Crystal Skull. So.
Indiana
That's
Jones
true.
5 looks pretty good, by the way. I'm excited for that.
All right. Lots of little new topics, little mini topics that we talked about in here that let's take some notes and talk about this in either podcast or future social hours. This is some good stuff. Good thought.
I'll be sure to send this podcast to Ann and Walter. I know
Yes.
they're listening.
Yeah.
You know they're listening. Yes, Ann and
Yeah,
Walter,
for
our
sure.
friends. Our friends.
Dear friends. First name basis. Yeah.
All right. Peter, plug whatever you want, sir.
You could follow me on social media. That's Twitter, Instagram, and Zack Snyder's favorite bureau at Pete Illustrated. Please follow my co-host, the champion of Long Island, Eric Holzman, Final E33, spelled finale 33. Please check out our show, Straight Outta Gotham, straight_O_G on both Instagram and Twitter. Check out our Facebook page and our Facebook group, Straight Outta Gotham. Follow my Italian efforts at Italians for Spidey on Twitter that I mess around with the Vigilante 1939 boys. Also, follow at Team Yellow Oval on Twitter as we try to convince Andy Muschietti to bring back not only Michael Keaton, but the Yellow Oval itself to the silver screen for the first time since 1995. Check out my reviews of Dark Detective, Detective Comics, and the most underrated DC title right now, Man Bat on Batman on Film proper. Check out Batman on Film YouTube for my toy reviews, as well as my interviews with Tara Strong, Kevin Conroy, and the great Michael Uslan.
Bill, I hate that you asked Peter for his plugs first because he is the best in the biz at rattling all that stuff off.
It's like
and
back
now I
in
gotta stumble through. Oh,
you gotta be good at something.
Oh, it's like in 1954 and 55 when no one wanted to follow Elvis on the Louisiana Hayride.
The fact that I got compared to Elvis in a show with Bill is pretty high.
They were saying to hell, I'm not following him anymore. So yeah.
Bill, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Garrett.
Right, you can hear me talk more on the Batman on Film podcast. Peter's there quite a bit, as well as a cast of familiar characters on this very same podcast feed if you're listening to the audio version. If not, head over to any place you find high quality podcasts, and you can find the Batman on Film one there. And you can continue the conversation with me over on Twitter. I am at Garrett Wato. That is GarrettWato. You can head to BatmanOnFilm.com, check out my reviews of Batman, Superman, and also Justice League. And if there's anything you'd like to hear about, questions you'd like to ask, or topics you'd like to suggest, you can email me at garrett.greb@batman-on-film.com. And I love taking ideas because sometimes it's just hard to think of things on your own. So feel free to shoot me a note there.
All righty. Well, you can follow me at Batman on Film on Twitter, and that will be that's more of my personal type Twitter in regards to Batman stuff and just my thoughts in general. If you want just a straight news feed, it's at the Batman on Film on Twitter. If you like what we do here on Batman on Film, want to become a supporter, go to patreon.com/Batman on Film. And of course, all of our shows, all these affiliated shows that are either from Batman on Film proper or just from the guys who do their own thing, who are part of Batman on Film. You can find those shows on BatmanPodcastNetwork.com and follow that feed on Twitter at BatPodNetwork. Let's see, I think I covered everything there in plugs. Oh, and check out my Batman Scooby-Doo Mysteries review and check that comic book out. It's worth your while, especially if you're in my vintage. I'd say if you grew up in the 70s and watched Scooby-Doo cartoons and saw Batman and Robin voiced by Casey Kasem and Olin Soyle, hang out with Mystery Inc. You'll enjoy it. You'll enjoy this book. So that's all I got. So I'm Bill. So Pete, Garrett, I've already said I'm Bill. Thanks for watching and listening. This will also be a podcast. We'll catch you next time.